Hello and welcome. I am Senior Microwave, but please, call me Agent. I'd like to start with a disclaimer. All my issues are observations I have made. I am making this video to talk about what I think could have been handled better with Nightmare's pre-release, release, and my current concerns with Nightmare's future, and how that could possibly be fixed. Anyway, let's get into it. Issue 1. How the new currency was announced and implemented. Okay, so the first issue I want to talk about is how the announcement of the new currency went. Crystals were announced not too long before the release. By itself, that wasn't a bad thing, but I don't think players really appreciated how that was communicated. But announcing the new currency was good. It helps players avoid the shock of logging on to the update and figuring out all their grinding was for nothing before. But what shouldn't have happened was showing the exchange system, but leaving out the fact it had a cap on it. As you can see here, the pre-release image doesn't show the cap, and avoids showing the conversion ratios. This led a lot of people to believe they could trade much more gold than what ended up being the case. Now I can't say for certain whether this was an intentional decision to get players to grind before the update to boost player count, or a genuine oversight. Either way, the perception that players were misled can easily form from this. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that people with massive amounts of gold should have been able to exchange all of it and get all the towers within the first 10 minutes. The point I'm making is that the way this was presented gave players the wrong expectations, making them believe they could grind gold ahead of time and exchange it for at least one tower. TDX could have completely avoided this by being transparent about how the system actually worked, and being upfront before the update. I know there isn't really a solution to this, in hindsight, and the exact mistake probably won't happen again unless a third currency was added, which I doubt there will be. The key point here is to set expectations right before the update. You need to be mindful of how your words shape player behavior. If what's said or shown leads players to do something, like grind heavily before release, and then it doesn't work how they expected based on what was shown to them, they're not going to be happy. So to wrap this section up, the problem here is that players were led to believe they could exchange more than they could, and then what I'm going to talk about in the next section probably adds on to the factor of why people were very unhappy with it. Issue 2. Limited skins. Before the Nightmare update, it was also announced if you got Refractor or War Machine within the first 24 hours, you would receive a skin for the tower you got. I know a lot of people defend this by saying it's just a skin, not a tower. I'm not here to argue with all that. What I'm here to talk about is the extremely limited time frame, the post-release extension, and the fact that required towers were the most expensive in the game. The whole point of introducing the new currency was to prevent players with a ton of gold immediately buying the towers, playing the mode once, and then leaving. So why have a 1 day, later extended to 3-day window to grind for the most expensive towers in the game when you're trying to keep player retention over a longer period of time? It's a counterintuitive decision that completely goes against the whole idea of adding a new currency because players already had so much of the last. The only thing it really accomplishes is pushing players to either spend Robux or grind an absurd amount of time in those 3 days that is pretty much unreasonable, something like the average player can't do. And not to mention, issue 1, where you already make the community think you can grind before, get some gold, buy a new tower, it doesn't help this at all. So people hear about the new limited skins, start grinding gold early, and when the update drops, they go trade in their gold, only to find out the amount of crystals they can trade them for can't even cover the first new tower, which is the cheapest. And they're not even close to the amount required for the two most expensive, which just happen to have the skins. There is no one single issue that caused a frustration around crystals. I believe it was a combination of factors, and the skin did not help at all. Yes, they are just skins, but a lot of players want to experience everything TDX has to offer. When those skins are effectively paywalled behind Robux or extreme time investment, people feel justifiably upset. And there's no clean way to fix this now. you can't extend the time again because people who already bought it will feel lied to, and you can't re-release them later because it breaks the promise of exclusivity. It creates a divide in the player base between those who got the skin and those who never had a fair shot to get it in the first place. If you want to reward people for spending money, that's fine, but by putting rewards behind an ultra-limited time window like this creates unnecessary resentment. Now let's move on to something more hopeful. Issue 3, Keeping Nightmare Alive. Nightmare mode is great. I'm just gonna say that outright. TDX, you made something other tower defense games struggled to get right. So seriously, great job. But I'm worried that Nightmare mode will stop being played once people get all the towers. Unlike gold, which can be used for skin crates and power-ups, crystals can only be used for towers and a handful of exclusive power-ups. 2 of them are unique, and the other 2 are upgraded versions of what we already have. So, once someone buys everything, why grind Nightmare again? Outside of XP, which is just a number at the end of the day, there's no strong reason to keep playing. Here's a few ways this could be fixed. A simple solution of allowing players to transfer crystals into gold could be implemented. It's not a great fix, but it's definitely something. Another option could be is letting all power-ups be purchasable with crystals, but make the normal gold ones be far more cost-effective if you buy them with crystals instead of gold. And maybe even bring back the old event power-ups to be purchasable with these 2. And a more ambitious idea, maybe you could even introduce like endgame skin crates that can only be bought with crystals. You know, giving people an option to grind for these if they really want the skins. Or you could even bring back old event towers and have them purchasable with crystals. This would help Nightmare mode stay active, give crystals more purpose, and keep players engaged after the initial grind of just unlocking the new towers. That's everything I have to say for today. And I just want to make this very clear. I love TDX. I think it's one of the best tower defense games on Roblox. I'm making this video to give honest feedback because I want to see the game do well, and I don't think it did this very well. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like if you agree or you just want to support the video, and have a great day.